You get to learn and to learn by playing, by interacting with them. To some extent, playing a game is to figure out what are the internal relationship of these games, what are the rules that govern this game, so you can exploit it and you can win it, beat it by essentially knowing it. So my hypothesis is, due to the fact that games are inherently systemic and inherently dynamic, maybe they can be better suited rather than linear media and traditional media to represent dynamic systems like social systems, economic systems, and so on. For example, there are many arguments against fast food chains. It's not good for health. Restaurants, McDonald's are kind of depressing. It's gross. But I'm not that interested in this kind of reductionist critiques. To me, there are other reasons to hate McDonald's, and they are systemic reasons. This is the simplified supply chain of a hamburger, right? And when I made a simulation based on McDonald's, I wanted to include what in technical terms are called the negative externalities of this industrial process. So pollution, unhealthy food, deforestation, bad job, pervasive marketing technique. Those are all things you don't usually see in management simulations, in tycoon games, because they are kind of depressing, they are definitely controversial, and they are usually ignored in favor of idealized scenarios in which you're just growing and running your business and everything is fine unless you're incompetent. Like Farmville is this idealized vision of a farm that doesn't exist anymore. That's not how food is produced in the West, at least. So I made this game called McDonald's video game a few years ago, which is a fake advertising game. It pretends to be an actual McDonald's video game, but it's not. This game kind of puts you in the player in the shoes of the CEO of the company. You have to manage this process. The player is in a top-down privileged position that allows you to zoom out from your normal experience of a fast food. Instead of being a customer, you're kind of like seeing everything from the top. So the game is about managing the supply chain of McDonald's, from pastures to the restaurants. So you have four different sections. You have this sort of South American scenario in which you have to create pastures and cultivate fields for fodder, and then you have a slaughterhouse, feedlot level, and then you have the restaurant itself. And the players quickly realize that in order to be profitable, in order to be a good manager, they might need to take some unethical choices, or some choices that are producing these negative externalities. For example, they might decide that it's more convenient to destroy the Amazon rainforest. And let's not forget that the main reason for deforestation is to make room for food production, especially beef, which is very consuming in terms of space, in terms of like the amount of land you need to cultivate food for bovines, for food for cows, or other things you can do. You can feed your cows with hormones and animal flours, and you will be facing the different problems that this this decision might entail. For example, you might have people protesting your practices, and environmentalists complaining, obese associations suing you, and so on. The game doesn't really punish you too much for making these unethical choices. Exactly how in the real world the corporations are not really accountable. The game is quite complex, but also relatively accessible, and the idea is to put together all the various criticisms that have been moved against McDonald's in the last 20 years or so. A similar approach is used in another management simulation called Oligarchy. This time the focus is on the relationship between politics and oil industry. The game also involves production, extraction of resources, exploration. So you have an expansive phase in which you create your oil empire. This time is not based on a specific corporation, but it's about a generic oil corporation. Most of the tasks you end up doing are related to the production process, so you're planting oil wells and managing resources, but others are more related to the politics of this fictional country that is definitely referring to the United States. So in order to expand to new areas, you need to oil a representative of the Congress and making sure that they are approving laws that are facilitating your business, laws that are increasing the dependency of on oil, fossil fuels, and laws that allow you to invade Middle Eastern countries so you can expand your activities there. The game is based on a model that is the peak oil theory, so the resources obviously start to decline and the resources start to get harder and harder to extract, and in order to do so you need to have a tighter grip on politics. And what happens is that if you are a very good player, you probably end up destroying the economy and making the economy too rigid to adapt to a post fossil fuel economy. If you are a bad player, you might either fail in economical terms, or you might just let the society adapt to fossil fuel scarcity. So there are different endings and different, I guess, lessons to be learned, or morale of the stories. And you can possibly make a game like this for every industry. Every production process has its own issues and its own externalities. And I realized that as a game designer, I wasn't immune either. Even if I work with digital matter, even if I work with code and images and media, still these images, these games are working, are operating and running on physical objects that are built somewhere. I'm not separated from this material economy, and under this shiny, smooth informational surface, there is a very material reality. Phone Story is a game that explores the dark side of global economy, but this time the manufacturing of consumer electronics. It's a game for iPhones and iPads and Androids, smartphones, and it's a game that talks about the smartphones themselves and how they are created and how they are disposed. This one is not a simulation, but a series of vignettes that are depicting the various phases of the manufacturing process. You have this smartphone that is essentially telling its own story as told by your own gadget.
Hello, consumer. Thank you for joining us. Let me tell you the story of this phone while I provide you with quality entertainment. Once upon a time, there were minerals resting in the bowels of the earth. One of these minerals, called coltan, is found in most electronic devices. The majority of coltan's world supply is located in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, a country torn by a brutal civil war. The increasing demand of coltan produced a wave of violence and massacres in the Congo. Military groups enslaved prisoners of war, often children, to mine the precious material.
This game was more like a media intervention because it was released for iPhone and it got approved for the iTunes market, but then quickly banned as soon as they realized that it was not an educational game, but it was more like a statement. And so the banning generated a lot of discussion, especially in technological circles, and so it became also about the closed market in which these games, these apps are only allowed to exist. So the fact that Apple can unilaterally decide, no, this is not good because it has questionable content. So the business model for Phone Story was to sell it in the Android and Apple market and then donate the proceeds to associations that are actually trying to do something to solve these problems. And what we end up doing is donating a few $1,000 to one of these workers who suffered serious injuries after trying to commit suicide by jumping from this Foxconn factory where all these gadgets are made in 2010. So I kind of contributed to the medical expense of this girl that was 19 at that point. Now, with these games, I don't just want to promote certain ideas. I don't want just to use them as propaganda, as serious documentary games or whatever. To me, an even more crucial issue is the issue of game literacy. Games and simulations are not neutral representations. Between a city and a virtual model of a city, like SimCity, there is a person, or possibly many people, with their own system of values, with their own cultural backgrounds, and with their own biases. So this process of modelization, this design process, is not politically neutral. Even when designers don't want to make a statement, they end up informing their products with their own beliefs. Every game, in a sense, represents a particular idea of how a city, a war, a farm, an industrial process functions. So all my games are overtly political and ideological because they don't pretend to be neutral or realistic. Because the point is also to show the degree of manipulation that can happen in games and interactive systems. The goal is not just to change the way people see the world, but also to change the way people see and experience all games and all simulations. And that's pretty much what I have to say. All these games are playable on the website molleindustria.org. They are online and free. It's probably better to play them than to see somebody rambling about them. I'll be connecting in a few minutes. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to interact with you for real. Thanks.
So Paolo will be joining us on Skype now for some Q&A. If anyone has questions for him, we'll be passing mics around. Please try and be really clear and slow when you speak, because over Skype. And whenever we are ready. Are we ready? Ready. Anyone? Questions? Yep.
Yeah. So just start.
Hey, Paolo.
A little distorted.
Should we start? All right.
Hello.
Is it working?
Can you hear us?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear, yeah.
Hello, thank you for your presentation. I find your work really inspiring. I'm working on a social impact game around farming in India and really trying to do something that communicates realities of farming.
No, I don't hear anything. Can you repeat that question afterwards?
Yes, I'm working on a game, a social impact game about farming in India with a team here. And one of the challenges that we are facing, you still not hearing me? No.
Okay, I'm going to type the question for you.
Yes, please.
Okay, I'll try to be simple.
I don't, the whole sound gets all distorted.
One of the challenges of making a game about farming is trying to not put forward a particular value judgment. And I see your work is questioning those systems, but it's very difficult to not already make decisions. So how do you avoid not making propaganda, not making those decisions already? We're trying to bridge the gap between the urban and rural in India, so a young urban audience.
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I tried to design a couple of games about farming, more specifically, especially farming in the United States. Trying to include, the issue of genetically modified seeds and things like that. So how do you avoid propaganda and essentially make the decision for the player? It's tricky. It's hard. I would say my take is just embrace the fact that your game, your system will represent your point of view, and maybe try to and maybe just like consider that there just needs to be different kind of models and many models for the same systems. Can you hear me all there? Yes. Okay.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, I think if you turn off the video, might have more bandwidth. I'm not sure.
You want me to turn off the video?
Yeah, it's possible that will work better. So, yeah, another possibility might be this is something I never really tried, but to essentially tell the player to specify his or her own ideological belief to start with. So, like having a kind of like different modes of play, and essentially playing whether, like, if you think, like, it's kind of like forcing the player to expose his own belief to start with, if you are not essentially trying to do education. Yeah, I don't know. Did I answer your question?
Thank you. Yes, that's a helpful answer. And the challenge goes on. Thank you.
Anyone else? Questions?
No.
Anyone? No? Oh, there's a question there.
There's one more question.
Oh, just one more?
Hello?
No. Yeah.
Hello? Hello? Can you hear me?
I hear just whistles and screeches and compression artifacts. So somebody will just type the question.
Okay.
Yeah, carry on.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you if you play games yourself to entertain yourself, and if so, which ones at the moment?
Can you repeat the question again?
Yes, I was asking whether Paolo plays games to entertain himself, and if so, which ones at the moment?
Yeah, not enough. I usually play games kind of like to judge them, so I get to play most of the most interesting games, especially independent. Every time there is an independent game festival, like the main GDC has that, and I'm usually among the judges, or even indicate when I'm not submitting anything. So get to play a lot of games in a very kind of like narrow periods of time, and then I generally stay in touch with I guess not even the independent, but the more like DIY and underground types of games that are the most interesting to play. Mostly because I don't really have time to play AAA games that take 40 hours to complete, and so I think, yeah, essentially, there is this blog called Free Indie Games, which is a very nice resource, and in general, I try to purchase and to support every seemingly interesting and independent release, and so I just don't have time for serious commercial games. Let's say that. I didn't mean to say serious, but yeah, let's say big budget games.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
There's one more question. Yeah.
in an action-centric medium like games, do you think it's possible that we can accurately represent an anti-war game, or do you think, like Truffaut said, like anything that is essentially represents itself as anti-war is not war because it's endorsing war in some or the other way?
Just waiting for the transcription. Can we accurately represent an anti-war game? The question is if there can be an anti-war game?
Yes.
Okay. And what would be the
Examples.
what features will it have?
Yes.
Yeah, I would say it's surprisingly enough, I still haven't seen war games or games dealing with war that portray civilians, essentially. My complaint is not that there are, I mean, it's not that I don't like war game. I would like to see